Manchester United 4, Brighton 2. A bit of a nervy end there. We never seem to make it easy for ourselves. But that is 3 wins on the bounce now for Manchester United in the Premier League. 4 in a row at Old Trafford. And I would say over the course of the 90 minutes, United were the better team and deserved all 3 points. Now, from minute 1 this week, it was very, very clear that we were going to be faced with a very different match to what we saw against Liverpool last weekend. In the Discord server before the match started, I said the first goal kicks are going to be interesting. Do United play long or do they play out from the back? And do United press or do we sit off? And right from the first moment when Brighton were trying to move the ball out from the back, United were much more aggressive with the pressing approach. We said last week, is it sustainable to sit off in the mid-block? Ruben Amorim obviously thinks not. In this game, he was much more aggressive with his pressing structure. So Brighton, in terms of playing the ball up from the back, they're very patient with their build-up play. Verbruggen in goal is someone who likes to take a lot of touches, and at times that causes problems. But what Brighton were trying to do is split 2 centre-backs either side of the goalkeeper. We've then got the 2 full-backs and then 2 central midfielders dropping in. Now what we saw from United was a bit more of a sort of 4-4-2 shape, or a 4-2-2-2 shape. So Šeško and Brian Mbeumo would come forward almost as the front 2. But then rather than seeing Cunha connecting in behind in midfield, he actually went a little bit wider, and Amad did the same on this side of the pitch, and Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes came incredibly high up the pitch to try and squeeze man for man. Particularly in this position here, I think this still shot is great. It really captures it well. You can see what United are trying to do. We're trying to go man for man. The problem we've got is Brighton are good normally at playing out from the back. Lewis Dunk and Van Heck are excellent on the ball, and Verbruggen's a really patient goalkeeper. And what he did at times was actually took extra touches, which nearly caused United problems. There were moments where he would just take an extra touch, and what it does is it draws the United forward in. And then when Verbruggen releases the ball, Brighton now have the spare man. And when Brighton were able to do this, what they would try and do is squeeze balls into midfield. But fortunately, Manchester United had a player called Luke Shaw, one that divides opinion, but one that was absolutely crucial to Manchester United winning this football match. He, defensively, was everywhere, and we don't normally see that from United centre-backs. We often see centre-backs that are cautious about leaving their channel of space. We literally did a video on this a few days ago. Luke Shaw in this game made that video look like a load of nonsense because he was playing everywhere. There were moments where defensively he was literally playing as a right back trying to connect for United in the press. Of course, it was actually from the left hand side that he was heavily involved in 2 goals for United, squeezing high to win the ball back in the high position, allowing United to ruthlessly attack and put the ball into the back of the net. This win does not happen without Luke Shaw's performance. He was absolutely tremendous. Now, just a slight downer on this, one thing I would say is it's going to be interesting to see if United use this approach more regularly, because there were spaces, had Brighton played a little bit better, where they could have hurt us. There were gaps opening up, but largely United got their pressing moments right and turned the ball over time and time again high up the pitch, and it caused a lot of problems for Brighton. Whilst we are all in such a happy mood, I thought I would just quickly ask if you guys could please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to push to 85,000 subscribers, and I need the help of you guys. I can't hit it without you, so if you could please press subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. We're having a great weekend. Why not keep up that positive vibe? So Manchester United defended bravely. Yes, there were a few shaky moments where we thought we might get caught out. It wasn't perfect, but it was bold. It was brave. It was on the front foot. We were trying to be aggressive. We were trying to take the game to Brighton. We also saw something very similar when United were on the ball. Now, we know that United are a team that don't knock the ball about for the sake of it. United like to get the ball forward very, very quickly to trouble the opposition and to overload key attacking areas of the pitch. And we saw this incredibly early on in the game. The second Brighton pushed their wingers forward, if United are able to win possession back, like we did when we pressed high, what we can do is quickly access the wide zones. And we saw this very early on, immediately here. Amad and Mbeumo, 2 versus 1 against the fullback. This is why United have a tactically unique weapon, because we've got 2 right wingers on the same side of the pitch. The Brighton left back doesn't want to have to deal with that for 90 minutes. What was also interesting, though, is actually just how many players United ended up with in this region. Because Bruno Fernandes is very often going to come and drift over to this side of the pitch. He always gravitates towards the ball. He likes to be involved. He's sort of our general on the ball. He's the one who dictates everything. But also, Cunha as well. Cunha was also drifting over into this position over here. And if we just mark these Manchester United players, I can't quite see past my mic. If we just quickly mark these Manchester United players, if you just look at these 4 players in isolation, but also as a collective, Look at the profiles we've got there. Look at the attacking quality we've got there. Can you imagine being the Brighton left back, the Brighton left centre back, the Brighton left-sided central midfielder? Looking at these four Manchester United players must be absolutely terrifying. Having these guys all near you, all making runs off the back of you and then coming towards the ball, must just be a nightmare to deal with. United are still far from perfect, despite 3 wins in a row. But when you can get quality players like this so close to each other, they're inevitably going to cause problems. The other thing you get when you get players close to each other is you get the chance to sustain pressure. Now, this is actually a little bit ironic because during the first 20 minutes or so, I was sitting there thinking, when United were losing the ball out wide, for example, I didn't think we did a good job or a good enough job of reacting, of quickly counter-pressing and squeezing Brighton back. I thought we made it a bit too easy for Brighton to play out in this phase. In the middle of the pitch, though, it was a different story. Because we've got 2 central midfielders, because we've also got high centre-backs, really high centre-backs at times, particularly Luke Shaw and Lenny Yoro, with the 2 central midfielders, with the 2 inside forwards, and with Benjamin Sesko as well. When United lose the ball in this position, there's so many players immediately there. So if United are switched on and physically the conditioning is good, which it seems to be at the moment, 1 match a week is certainly helping, the United players look very fit. The coaches deserve a lot of credit for that. But it allows you to quickly pounce, and yes, you may lose possession, but you can quickly win it back. And sometimes that's when defenders are at their most vulnerable, and we saw that here. United just sort of keep the ball alive, we win it back, and then we work it across and score a goal. So we're really getting rewarded for that intensity. Now, I do just quickly want to go to the overloads and the wide overloads that we were talking about earlier. We mentioned United's ability to get Amad and Mbeumo down the right-hand side, attacking a left-back, how dangerous that can be. We know the dynamic on the left-hand side is a little bit different. Dalot isn't a winger. Cunha isn't really a winger. He's a bit more of a half-space player, someone who likes to play inside the pitch. What United have done this summer is we have signed Mbeumo and we have signed Matheus Cunha. You guys will already know that. It's not exactly new news. But they're very good footballers. They are 2 very good footballers signed in 2 crucial positions in the Ruben Amorim system. Last year, we never felt as though we had the right players in these positions, and that often costed us. In this game, I think it's fair to say we had the right players in these positions. And the position or the area or the zone that I'm talking about is at times almost as the spare man, particularly when United attack down one side and try and move the ball across quickly. So let's say Amad's got the ball over here. United have sort of created this 2 versus 1 against the fullback. Brighton aren't daft. They have to get across towards you, right? They have to try and close you down. We should also add, by the way, this is important, Brighton often defended with an extra man at the back. So sometimes the winger would drop deep into a back 5. Not always, but sometimes, and it is actually quite important. So, United overload this side of the pitch with Amad and Mbeumo, 2 versus 1 against the fullback, because we've moved forward so quickly. That's great to see. Brighton inevitably react. They get players over, they get players across into this position here, in an attempt to sort of shut United out, to try and close the ball down, to put pressure on the United players to give them less time to play and make a decision. However, if Brighton get it wrong, or United get it very right, there is this gap that starts to form actually on the far side of midfield. And this is what I'm talking about, the spare man, the spare player for us in this position here. And when we've got a wing-back ready to fly around as well, the opposition full-back or wing-back or wide midfielder really has a decision to make. Should he be narrow with Cunha or should he be wide with Dalot? They don't always really know. And that's when we get players in this spare position here. And you will notice that is exactly where Cunha gets his goal from, by being the spare man on the left side of the United midfield, and of course the finish is quality. If we then fast forward a little bit and we go to Mbeumo's first goal in this match, he is the spare man on the right side of the midfield. You will notice he's not on the centre-back or the full-back, he's in that space in between, he's the spare man in that position. And again, of course, the quality is very good and the run from Amad helps him. But this is why these 2 are so important for United, because they can be spare. And when you've got spare players with that much quality, you're going to score goals. Now, it's all been very positive for Manchester United so far, and that's because we won 3 matches in a row. We won 4-2, we were the better team, we deserved to win, and we come away from it with a positive energy. But it wasn't perfect. There were moments where it was shaky, a little bit scary. Even in the first 10 minutes, there were moments where Brighton were able to overload the press and play through, like we spoke about earlier. There was room in behind Manchester United that Brighton could exploit. And even on the ball, as good as United were in moments, there's still times where it's a little bit sloppy, a little bit predictable, and Brighton can sort of lead us one way. Despite that, United were a better team, much better team, and deserved to race into that 3-0 lead. Then come the substitutes. Now, I don't want to focus too much on the substitutes today, but it is a talking point. At 3-0 up, Ruben Amorim makes some subs, and I don't think there's an issue with bringing Dorgu on. I don't think there's an issue with bringing Kobe on. To me, that doesn't signal the game is won. You know, that's good strength and depth. We're bringing on good quality players. 2 players that could arguably be a starter another week. The problem is probably the fact that we take Casemiro off. Simply because Kobe Mainoo and Bruno Fernandes end up as your double pivot. Now, I don't actually have a massive problem with that. I think there are games where that could potentially work, particularly if you were chasing a goal, you know, if you were 1 or 2 goals behind. But when United are 3 goals up, I don't know that you partner Kobe with Bruno. That just seems a little bit odd to me in terms of defensive security. It seems a little bit counterproductive to do that, because at the time, United did sort of sit a little bit deeper. Inevitably, you know, we've got the 3-goal lead. We can play in a bit more of a back 5. Let's get Dorgu onto the pitch. So we can go a little bit deeper. You know, it makes sense to protect your lead. You're 3-0 up. But then playing Kobe and Bruno together sort of didn't make sense. And of course, that invites Brighton back into the game. Now, at that point, it was shaky, and some of the old issues are still there. Some of the old cracks start to reappear. The shakiness at the back, the lack of composure, the lack of confidence, really. The first hour, United looked confident and were knocking the ball about quite nicely and won all of our defensive duels. Suddenly, that last 20 minutes, it gets a little bit tetchy. The players seem a little bit uncertain. I think naturally that happens. You know, just because we've won 3 matches in a row, there's still a lot of years of bad experiences for a lot of these United players. So they're always going to have it in the back of their mind, that sort of, oh God, we couldn't, could we? We couldn't throw this away. What happens if we do? I think that starts to creep into the mind. Fortunately, United have just insane quality. The decision from Bruno Fernandes to leave the ball, the vision is incredible. You know, that's better than an assist, how well he does with that. And then Brian Mbeumo, again, is lethal. And I think that was sort of the message of the day for United. I thought tactically we pressed quite well. We turned the ball over in really good areas, and then largely we took our chances. Realistically, I actually feel that we could have scored 1 or 2 more goals. We got into some really good positions, some really good opportunities. But we just about got there. Now, the overall verdict is it's a very good day for Manchester United. Brighton have been a very difficult game for United over the past few seasons, particularly at Old Trafford. I did have sort of a quiet confidence coming into the game. You know, the momentum behind United right now, I sort of labelled it the other day as a bit of a make or break match, which is weird when you've just beat Liverpool away from home. But it was like, this is our chance to get some momentum or throw it all away and show that we really haven't learned anything. I was encouraged by what I saw from United. It's not perfect, of course it's not. I don't think anyone thinks it is. That would be crazy to suggest. But there is progress. You know, you can see the players sort of buying into the idea. Your Mbeumo and Ahmad link up is improving. Mbeumo and Cunha with Sesko, Bruno with Cunha. You know, the players are starting to understand each other a little bit better, the idea. And you get there, right? That's the most important thing for United. It would have been a catastrophe to lose that football match, or even to draw it after being 3-0 up. Getting that late goal really helps. Winning 4-2, it feels nice. It feels like that's what we deserved. So all in all, it's a very happy day for Manchester United. Are there some problems? Are there some flaws? Yes, we can cover that another day. But because it's been so negative over the past year or so, I like to really focus on the positives when United are winning. Yes, the problems are still there, but let's talk about what's going right, because we don't get to do that very often as United fans. So at the moment, I'm sort of enjoying United on this winning streak, winning football matches, putting results together and finding some form on the football pitch, players starting to execute. It's actually quite fun being a Manchester United fan right now. You know, we can never be called boring. We never make it easy, but it's always quite entertaining. So I'm a very happy man today, and I'm sure that you guys are as well. But I do want to hear from you in the comments. How do you feel after that game? You know, it's so positive and then really worrying and then so positive again to win 4-2. Who impressed you the most? What do you like about this team? But also, what videos do you want to see this week? Sort of reflecting on this performance and also Liverpool as well. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Apart from that, we are now finished for this video. So thank you guys very much for watching as always. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.